All right, welcome everybody. My name is Brian McLogan, and in this live stream, I want to give you one piece of advice that I hope that you can use to help you along with your distance learning. So this is my bonus stream. Good to see you, Love, Zach, Doris, and S. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in on the live stream. And what I've been doing for these last couple weeks since we've been doing distance learning is doing a little bit extra open office hours where I can basically just kind of talk to you guys a little bit as far as how distance learning is going for myself, as well as to kind of check in with you guys and seeing how everybody is handling it on their own, because it's not something that I think anybody was really prepared for, or at least into this degree of being prepared for this distance learning. So there's going to be a lot of learning curve that we've been kind of working through. So I wanted to make sure I was available for you guys to answer your questions. And if you do have any questions, teachers, parents, students, about the distance learning or how things are going with your classroom, please feel free to add them into the chat. That is what I am here for on this extra bonus live stream. If we do have some questions, math questions, then I'll kind of see how we get to it. You can see I did week 4 and week 5. I didn't even get to math questions on week 4. I think I was just exhausted. And that's usually what happens because I am still teaching inside of the classroom. I'm still creating content for my students. They actually had a quiz today. So for all of you members, I did the live stream for the quiz earlier, and I posted up there we're doing conic sections. But no matter what class you're in, I think the piece of advice that I want to cover tonight is hopefully something that I think anybody can take away. If you are in pre-calculus or calculus, college, high school, whatever may be the case. This is something that I don't know where it kind of came from, as far as how I had this, epiphany as wondering like, why have I been doing this? Why have I kind of been avoiding this? And I'm not sure if it's kind of been the shock of how things have changed so quickly, and also, how to the degree that they changed. In addition to maybe like just the overwhelm of all the stuff that I had to do, even though I record my lessons all year. So I have everything is basically online on YouTube, on my website, in my membership site. It's all basically there for my students, but still the fact of like now having to convert everything to online and not having that opportunity to go into class, it was difficult transition even for myself. And so I'm, right now, like I said, I'm still behind on creating my content. So I'm trying to get all this content out in front and getting prepared for my students. But either way, that's a little bit about me. But the point that I was trying to bring into is, I think the first two to probably like 4 weeks of this distance learning, I just wasn't really, present. I wanted to make sure I showed up for you guys. Obviously, continue to do my open Q&A. I did a couple daily live streams on this channel for a while to just try to make sure I was there, especially that for the tech issues. And I knew there was going to be a lot of students that would have questions and everything else. Oh, thank you, Jared, for super chat. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And so, those are some of the things that I, was trying to kind of like get myself acquainted and get myself prepared for this distance learning, but nothing really kind of, felt right. And I was it didn't really hit me until this last week. I was like, what are things that is, why are things not clicking? Like I should feel more comfortable. I should feel like I should have more time. I should feel like I'm not stressed with all of this digital learning. I should feel, I should feel ready and prepared and like enjoying all the days. Why is everything kind of seem like an overwhelm? And one of the things that I kind of look back on is my routines. Throughout like everything, since everything got flipped upside down, which is totally natural, right? You're going to lose those routines. Obviously not going to school, not, getting in the car, like getting the kids to school and like, doing everything that we do every day. But the thing that I was realizing is, yeah, my original routines are not going to come back, right? That's changed, but I hadn't developed any other new routines for myself now working from home. And that was something that really I realized I'm like, I'm missing a lot, obviously not only just, from my routine of like working out, going to the gym, of my daily stretching, a lot of things that I just do for my own like self-improvement, in the morning routine, and all the kind of everything just got thrown away. And I was all trying to worry about getting prepared for this distance, learning and doing all this stuff that I didn't look back and reflect on the little things. And I think that's the piece of advice that I want to bring to all of you is, there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of change, right? But try to find some kind of routine that you can go ahead and develop for yourself. There's even some little things that I've done in the classroom. Like for my students, they know, every day I always dress up, dress shirt and dress pants every single day, except for at the end of the year. And I don't know why. It's not something I enjoy, wearing dress pants and dress shirts. Actually, a lot of times I don't want to wear dress pants and dress shirts, except in the winter. In Florida, it's not really the winter, but still I'll wear like a nice sweater. But either way, I always forced myself. I always thought that, as myself, I always wanted to make sure that I was always dressing up for school. That was just something that I held myself to. And it didn't matter, no matter what was going on, didn't matter how sick I was or, whatever, how tired I was, it didn't matter. I was always going to make sure that I was dressed up. And that's something that I've been for as long as I've been a teacher. That is something I have remained true to, except for the end of the year. Then I wear t-shirts and I just kind of have fun, with our students, because students are like, oh my God, I can see your arm hair. I've never seen your arm hair before, like on my forearms, obviously. But yeah, because I'd always wear just long sleeve dress shirts. And there's nothing against if you don't. That's just, well, like I said, that was one of my personal things that I always kind of got me in that teacher mode, got me ready to teach, and, put me into that mindset, right? And I think that's the key is like when you develop your routines and you get everything set, you're in that mindset of teaching, of getting things done. And I think what happened is, since I've been at home, I wasn't getting myself dressed up, right? I mean, maybe when I was going live with my students, I'd throw like on a polo shirt, obviously like some whatever dress pants or just regular jeans or pajama pants I was wearing. But yeah, it was much more of like a lackadaisical, I didn't have to get in the car. I didn't have to, get dressed at certain times, and so I kind of lost that routine. And once I kind of understood that, and I kind of got back into like, all right, well, I mean, I was always waking up at the same time. I still wake up at the exact same time, or at least try to in the mornings, and still kind of go through a little morning routine. But what I kind of realized is I need to make sure I get dressed up every single day in the morning. I need to make sure that I have my workout time and I don't miss my workout time. Even though I'm not going to the gym, I need to make sure that I'm doing my workout just like if I was going to the gym. And I need to make sure that I'm, following some sort of a routine. So therefore, I have some kind of structure. And I think that's the hardest thing that a lot of students, they don't realize that a lot of what has helped them up to this point has been that structure. Like, I know a lot of students want to buck the trend of like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want structure. I don't want people to tell me what to do. But one of the things that I realized is, losing that structure, especially even from the teacher, even from like the structure of myself, I was at loss. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was doing things that weren't really, helping my students as well as helping myself get prepared. And so that's something that I've changed in the last 2 weeks, and I've really seen a big improvement. So I would really challenge you, if you have not developed some sort of routine up to this point, as far as checking in with your classes and what times you're going to be, doing things and making sure you get things done. And therefore, then you can do other things. And I know it's difficult because everything is so up in the air and always changing. But I really do feel like if you can develop some sort of routine that you're going to be doing this every single day or following this type of protocol, it's really gonna make a difference. And because there's so many other things you guys have to be worrying about and thinking about and going through, I think if there's some things that you can try to remain consistent, that is going to help you. Not just in math, because you can obviously see everything I've talked about right now has nothing to do with mathematics, or specifically mathematics, but it's really just kind of getting into getting into the right mindset, for either learning or preparing or whatever you end up doing. And it's really not even about learning in school. It's really just about getting yourself into a position where you can be a better version, of yourself. And I think that the routines is going to be something that really is going to help a lot of you. And for me, that was something that was missing. And I didn't know it was missing until the last couple of weeks that I realized I'm like, that's it. I've lost these little routines, these things that I look forward to that I knew as long as I, I knew what to expect. And again, it's always going to be changing, and you have to be flexible. But I think if you guys can develop some sort of, routine to remain flexible, then that's going to help you out, especially as we are kind of following into this end of the year. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how you guys are, how everything is going to kind of go with grades and an exam. So I'm always kind of interested to see, but that is off my little chant. Hopefully that was helpful for some of you guys, but I do see you guys up on there. Zach and Justin, Armin, Christopher. Thanks for a pep talk. You're very welcome. Yeah, I just, some things I was just kind of thinking about as far as what I wanted to do. Yeah, my teacher. Oh, well, good to know, Adam. Not sure, Adam's Mr. Eduardo Riviera. Very good. Well, anyways, do you guys have any questions regarding anything that you guys are doing? I'm kind of interested. Also, if you guys have taken any tests online, my students are taking, I gave them a quiz this week. It was just, I usually give quizzes and I graded them. This week, I decided to give my students a grade and just make it a take home and like just extra credit, basically like just do it. And I'll be happy and I'll just give you like a little participation grade. But my students are going to be taking their first test next week. So I'm kind of interested to see if you guys have taken a test so far. I'm not sure how things are really going to be applied for my class or as far as how that's really going to relate as far as into a grade. But they will be taking it online. It will be a multiple choice. It will be kind of graded. That's what my students are used to for this year. So I'm kind of interested to see if you guys have taken a test. And has it been something that's been multiple choice? Has it been something that has been a free response? How are you guys handling that? Any teachers, what are you guys doing? Because I think it's, kind of one of those tough situations where the same thing, like the routine, like I want to give students something to look forward to. I want them to know that I still want to hold them accountable for things, but in the same respect, I don't want to hold anybody really accountable for what's happened, out there. I mean, there's so much have been out of our control. There's only so much that we can control at this moment. And in reality, everybody's at a different situation. I don't think it's fair to give, people the same, to say that they're in the same situation of somebody that has not been impacted at all. When you're a student, like their parents are perfectly fine. They're both, at home working and like nothing's really changed, just maybe a little annoying. And then you have other people that's like, it's really stressful at home and, they're not able to focus. They're not able to do their work and kind of stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see. I'm not really sure how I'm going to address that. All right, solving quadratics, Armand. So go blue. See it? Good for you. What kind of solving quadratics? You can do factoring, quadratic formula, completing the square. Is there anything in particular? Did you want to talk about it on graphing? Let me know what you're kind of taking a little bit. I'm taking a test on Friday. Well, good for you. Good luck. Justin says taking 2 tests. They were not multiple choice, open book. Yeah. Yeah, AP exams, at least what I've seen, are like an open note, reduced free response questions. And so, yeah, that's going to be kind of interesting. I feel bad for a lot of the AP students as well, because I think, especially throughout the year, I mean, the teachers, because I've taught AP calculus for a couple of years. And I mean, you put a lot of time into it. The teachers put a lot of time into it. The students put a lot of time into it. And I'm not saying what they have developed is anything bad, but and hopefully it is good and better. It's just, I know if I was taking AP or if I was teaching AP, I would want my students' grades to be measured up as best as they could against previous, students that took it. And, I'm hoping, I think what they came up with is, the best that they could have done. And I'm not sure if there is a better way to do it. But I know it also is just kind of like the fact of like, man, I wish, would have had that opportunity to really see how they would have performed, had they had the opportunity to take the full AP exam. But, it's just a sign of it's just reality. I mean, there's really nothing else they can do. I think what they're doing is the best they can do. And, because again, the same thing is like you have these students that are putting all this time and effort into these courses. We have to have some accountability of seeing how they did and doing for, for college credit. But yeah, in the same respect, we can't do, can't have it the same way it's been. All right. We can talk about factoring. Sure. That's it. Is area the same as surface area? Yeah. I mean, the surface area is going to be area is basically going to be the area of a 2-dimensional figure, and surface area is going to be for a 3-dimensional figure. So very, very similar, a little bit different as far as when you kind of like look at them, but basically the surface area is going to be the sum of the area of the faces of your geometric figure. All right. What do you think about using Proctorio service? I am not sure what you mean, but I can go ahead and do a factoring problem, I guess. I don't know. I'll have to. Actually, it's just solve a quadratic. So let's go through. Actually, there's actually something that's very, very important I want to talk about with solving quadratics because it comes up with students all the time. So let's do an x minus 3. I'm just going to keep this basic. A x squared minus 3. Let's do a 0 equals x squared minus x. And let's do a 0 equals x squared minus, maybe we'll do a 2x. Yeah, let's do a 2x. Whatever. I'll just make it up. Let's do a 2x minus 3. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this kind of like transition there. All right. Let's see. If just anything else I just wanted to address. It's a test taking monitored service that watches students' eyes to see if they are cheating on tests, since all tests are online. I haven't heard about that, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's a couple points I have with that. Like, I think that's going to be a reality, especially for a lot of, some schools and some kind of testings where we need people to be held accountable. The way that I kind of see things is I think we've been putting way too much weight and stress on tests in the last couple of years. And so I think this is really a natural way of getting away from that. So yes, there's always going to be tests where we really want to know where those students' eyes are going. We really want to know to make sure those students are not cheating and they really, really know what it is they exactly know. But in the same respect, I think there's a lot that we're going to change from all of this. Like I think there's going to be a lot that we're going to realize that, especially in this jump from high school to college, that does not need to be taught. It does not need to be, we're putting in so much effort, so much time, so much money into a lot of these tests, and we're not really seeing the results, And so I think those are some things that are going to change. And while at this moment, some people think that, and I can definitely see it, they're like, all right, well, everything's going to be online. Let's kind of create this, way for people to not cheat. But the reality is, all this stuff is available online. I mean, you have unlimited, like I get the eye idea, but what about, having somebody on the other side of the screen checking things on your phone and then like whispering them to you or telling you what to them? Like there's always going to be a way. No matter what you do, there's always going to be a way for somebody to be able to figure out a way to get around it, right? It's just a matter of time. And that's just the reality. That is like the history of everything, whenever say can't do this, there's always going to be a workaround, right? Always happens. But I think the bigger picture, the more important thing is, why are we so why are we so interested in students knowing some of the knowledge that they know? What is it that we really, really want students to know? And what do we want them to be able to show us to be able to get credit or to take these classes? And I think that's where the big changes are going to be making. And because I think that the colleges and the high schools and like the governments, the state educational government, they've had the kind of control of like, these are the courses that, students are taking. And, this is like this pathway that we on. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in so many years. And I don't think it's really been serving us as a society for students really being prepared for the real world. And so I think those are some of the bigger changes that's going to happen. And obviously I think there's always some great things that will kind of come out of it as far as like the online testing, which I'm looking forward to, but in the same respect, I'm thinking like the same thing like that FRQ, with the AP calculus, like, it's like, hey, here's 2 free response questions, open book, open note, like do the best that you can do. And I think that some of those thinking skills and just teaching, having students be able to understand the conceptual knowledge, not just procedural, because we have computers that can do all the stuff. We need people that can understand and extrapolate all that information. All right. Did you shave or did your wife or kids? Did you shave or did you wife or kids say? I don't know. I think no. I'm not sure. I would shave on Sundays usually. So usually on my Sundays open stream, unless I am tired or lazy, that's usually when I'll go ahead and shave. But I don't think I shaved since Sunday. I always kind of forget. Zach, I do have some videos on limits if you want to go and check them out. As far as when the limit doesn't exist, there's a lot of times that limit is not going to exist from on there that I can go through. That I have a lot on the videos, but I'm just going to kind of run through on that. Hi, Mr. Bogan, can you go over the transformations of the graph x or y equals x? X to the fourth, or I'm not sure if I understand your question, but two-sided limit. Yep, you can have the limit is not going to exist. Typically when you're going to have a asymptote, when they're approaching different sides, you can have it at a gap. Those are from the graphical portion. You can look at those. That's when the graph is not going to, or that's when the limit's not going to exist from a graphical perspective. All right. Is the patriarchy. Okay, thanks, Abraham. Has anybody multiplied matrices before? How do you know graphically? It's just a little worried. I did not exist algebraically. Yeah, I would definitely look at the graphical approach. I mean, there's just a little when I get a does not exist. I mean, basically, you remember just the limit is going to be the value that the graph is going to be approaching from the left and from the right. So you're basically looking for a number, not infinity, but typically you're looking for a number. Well, not typically. You are looking for a number, a value that the graph is approaching from the left and from the right. That is the general limit. Obviously, we can get into limits at infinity. You can get at the left hand, the right hand. You can get into a little bit more advanced and then looking and then also talking about the limit approaching infinity, but that's not a value. So anyways, I have a lot of that, but yeah, just in general, you're looking for that value that the graph is approaching from the left and from the right. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you guys for joining in at the end. Why is the chat? Oh, it's cool. Take my chat little revenue from my super chat. Let's see. Well, thank you guys. You guys are showing up and giving me some thanks. So I really do appreciate you guys, and especially joining in and saying you're checking in, saying hello, and let me know how my videos have helped you guys out. I really do appreciate you guys taking that time. And I know that nobody really wanted this school year to end like it did. I know it's tough for a lot of you seniors and and everybody really that, is really just kind of missed out on a year of school. I never missed out on a year of school like this. And a lot of your parents and friends, didn't have the same experience. So, but the only thing I can go through as far as circling back to my end of advice before I get to this quadratics is, the same thing is I think a lot of times I was at loss of like not knowing how best to respond to all of this change. And even though I felt pretty good about doing, getting things done, I wasn't really, I don't think, taking advantage of the opportunities that all of this stuff was going on. Like, obviously there's a lot of negative, there's a lot of downside to work through. But in the same respect, I kind of looked at this and said, all right, at the end of this, how do I want to look back and say, like, how did I, what habits did I gain from this? And it's kind of a weird thing, but it really was something that was like, all right, I'm sleeping in, or like, let's say if I'm sleeping in or I'm not doing things, like, do I want, let's just say everything is done next week, right? Do I want to now have all these habits that now I have to go and break, right? Or is it through this whole experience that I want to gain some new habits, some new routines that's going to make me a better person from it? And that's the kind of like the decision. I was like, wow, like I got to create, I lost some of my routines. I got to create some new ones. I got to create some ones that are going to make me even stronger, make me even better, and make me perform, much better. So therefore, when it does subside or change or just maybe lighten just a little bit, I'm going to be in a much better position than I am where it started. And that's the kind of position that I took. And I know everybody has a lot of different situations. There's a lot of things that is different with everyone. But I think just if you guys can find some little nugget to hold on to, that's going to be that kind of routine to follow, and try to look at, when this is over with, what type of routines do you want to have created that's going to make you a better person? I think that can be some kind of glimmer of benefit that you can take out of this situation. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get through. I'm just going to talk about this quick little problem about solving quadratics by factoring. And the point that I want to make with this is, and again, guys, if you do have questions, yeah, that's right, Kevin. If you guys do have questions, please feel free to go to my Discord. I believe it is in the community chat. I will be answering questions on there, as well as not just tonight, but I do always kind of check in there. I try to check in there at least once a day, just try to answer whatever questions going on. But it's not just about me. It's other people are helping each other out, answering your questions. And then also, if you're able to help other people's questions, please help each other out, create a little bit of that community where you guys can be there for each other. But please post your questions in on there. And then also I will be doing my open Q&A on Sunday at 9 p.m. to answer your guys' questions. So feel free to make sure you guys look out for my community posts, and I'll answer questions there as well. So I'm just not going to I see some of the math questions are coming up there. I just don't have time to cover them as far as on this stream. But I do want to cover at least this understanding of solving quadratics by factoring. And then we'll save the rest of the questions for the open live stream. All right, so let's go into solving. Now, the first example is a linear equation. The reason why it's a linear equation is because my variable x is raised to the first power. So if you remember from like algebra 1, if we need to solve a linear equation, we're just going to use our inverse operations. Basically meaning we're going to undo what's happening to our x. So in this case, you can see our x is being subtracted by 3. So using my inverse operations and properties of equality, I can add a 3 to both sides, and I get 3 equals x. And you can just flip that around using the reflexive property and say x is equal to 3. Voila, right? Fairly simple. Now, the interesting thing is now in this next example, I have a quadratic. But the interesting thing in this case is I have a quadratic there's only one variable. So just like a linear equation, I can use my inverse operations. I don't have to, I can just undo what is being applied to the variable because there's only one of them, right? It's just an x squared. So again, just like for the linear equation, I'm going to undo addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to add a 3 to both sides. Now I'm going to switch these around. You don't have to, but I'm just going to. So you can see, all right. So this is x squared equals 3. Now, to undo subtraction, we add it. To undo multiplication, you divide. To undo squaring, we're going to introduce the square roots. Now, again, make sure that you be careful when you introduce the square root. You have to take into account the plus and the minus of 3, square root of 3. Okay, because 3 squared, I'm sorry, it's positive square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3, and negative square root of 3 times negative square root of 3 is also going to be 3. So you have to make sure you include both, right? But you can see there's 2 solutions. And what's important about this, something we'll talk obviously about later, is there's 2 solutions. There is a power of 2, right? Something we talk about in later in Algebra 2, or at least hopefully it's introduced to you in Algebra 2, fundamental theorem of algebra. Now, in the next one, we have something interesting. And this is where the reason why I wanted to cover these 2 examples, because this hopefully makes a little bit of sense. It's something you're familiar with. But then here is where students start to make here's where the issues start coming in. And again, this even happens with my students in pre-calculus. The first thing they want to do is use inverse operations, like the previous examples. They add an x to both sides and say, no, we can't do that. And the reason why we can't do that is because x is the unknown. Like, we need to solve for x. We need to get x equals, right? So when we add x to the other side, we're not isolating this x, all right? So what we need to simply do, or what we need to understand, is we need to get this to be an equation. And so without getting into depth as far as this understanding, what we're going to do is we're going to look into factoring. And particularly the reason why we want to look into factoring is because we want to use what we call the zero product property. And that is really like the kind of game changer with solving by factoring. Because if I have a times b is equal to 0, I think you'd agree that either a is 0 or b is 0. Has to be, right? I mean, something times something is equal to 0. Either a or b or both of them is going to be 0. So what that means is I want to take this expression and rewrite it as a product. I want to rewrite it as something times something else. Well, what I realize is they both share a x, right? This is x squared and that's x. So what I can do is factor out the common element x. So I have, in this case, when I do that, I have x times x minus 1. Well, now you can see that this is a product, a times b. So now I can say, all right, either the first expression is equal to 0, or this second expression is going to be equal to 0. Okay, then I just add a 1. X equals 1, and therefore you can say either x equals 0 or x equals 1 is equal to 0, or x is equal to 1 is also a solution. So therefore you have 2 solutions. And again, what do you know? That's to the power of 2. Now, so that's what comes in interesting is you can say, oh, well, now I have 3 terms. And again, another common thing that students want to do is they say, oh, let me add the 3. But again, we can't, that's not going to help us out. We have 2 variables. We have an x squared and we have the x. So we have the quadratic and the linear term. And we got to understand there's going to be 2 answers. So we can't use our inverse operations like here because we can't just solve for x. What we need to do is we need to factor. We need to say, all right, well, how can we rewrite this as a product of 2 factors? And again, there's a lot of different ways to understand factoring, to think about factoring. I'm just going to go through the idea of that this trinomial comes from the product of 2 binomials. So if I was going to multiply 2 binomials to give me this, it would look something like this. Okay, because if we go ahead and follow FOIL, you'd have x times x squared. And then the last 2 terms are going to multiply, give me -3. Now, the nice thing here is I only have 2 options, right? It's either going to be a -3 and a positive 1, or it's going to be 0 equals +3 and a -1. Now, the reason why I chose this answer and the reason why I knew this is correct is because, again, when you apply FOIL here, right? So you have x times x is x squared. Actually, let's just multiply this out. Actually, let's do it here. X minus 3 times x plus 1. All right, if you were to multiply this out, x times x is x squared. X times 1 is x. -3 times x is -3x, and then -3 times 1 is a -3. So you can see how it works, right? You can see how x minus 3x is a -2x. So what's happened here is the first 2 terms multiply to give you first term of your trinomial. The last 2 terms multiply to give you the last terms. And the what we call the inner and the outer and the inner and the outer, those give you your middle terms, which are like terms and they get combined, right? So the interesting thing here is, oh, hey, Yusuf, thank you. Good to see you on there. So if you have x squared minus 2x minus 3, what you can see is the larger of the two products, or like negative 3x and negative 3 times x, or x times 1, whatever the larger of those two products is, that's going to determine the value of your middle term. Well, since negative 3 times x is larger than x times 1, like when you combine those, that gives you negative 2x. That's why I knew that I wanted negative 3 to be negative. That was a really bad way of putting it. If I look at my trinomial, I recognize my middle term is negative. So what that means is I want my product of the inner and the outer. The larger of the two products, I also want to be negative. That's why I made the negative 3 negative. And that still is not really coming out of my mouth really well, but hopefully it kind of makes a little sense with you. In reality, it is one of those things that is practice makes things kind of click a lot easier. And I'm just trying to do a quick little overview video. But now you have a times b, and you can just set those both equal to 0 via the zero product property, and x equals 3 and x equals negative 1. No worries. All right, guys. Well, I am all out for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me on the stream. And please make sure you guys post your questions on Discord or on my community chat. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next stream. I will be available on Sunday for the open Q&A. All right, guys. Have a good night. Cheers.